Be yourself, King. Should be yourself. And really the greatest thing that you could be is to be yourself.
What's up, everybody? This is the Ike Inspiration Podcast, and today I have a great guest named Jim Keys. Jim is the former CEO of 7-Eleven and Blockbuster, and he's also the author of the book Education is Freedom. And I am super excited to have this guy on because he has a lot of great wisdom to share and life experiences. And, before we start the podcast, Jim, I would like to start off with a quote that I believe you will like, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the quote. And the quote is, someone can take your money, your material things, your job, but they can't take away what you know. With knowledge, you can replace anything lost. You can be free to explore the world. You are beholden to no one. What are your thoughts on that quote?
Yeah, whoever said that must have been really a smart guy.
Yeah, I wonder who said that.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, but that's genius.
Yeah.
That happens to be true too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on that quote?
Well,
yeah.
I obviously that was a line from my book, and it was inspired by my dad, who my dad never got past sixth grade. Hardworking guy. World War II came around, and he got kind of distracted between the war and then having a big family and had to make money, and he just never had a chance to go to school. But what he wanted for me was something very different. He wanted me to understand that it was all about freedom. It wasn't even about making money. It was all about being able to do the things in this life you want to do and be with the people you want to be with, and that the pathway, he didn't know how for me to get there, but he knew that it had something to do with the more I learned, the more I could do. And so that was his advice, and that's the advice I'm passing along to everybody.
Yeah. There's a lot of truth in that, and I feel like we're so limited by the amount of knowledge we have, and it's crazy. Where the type of knowledge and experiences and people you meet can open your eyes to. And this is why I love the podcast, because I get so many different perspectives. So I'm curious, what inspired you to create the book Education is Freedom?
It was really because I was one of those kids. I was one of those kids that grew up, with virtually nothing and had no expectations on me.
Yeah.
And I discovered that life is out there and opportunity is everywhere. And I live a life today that most people couldn't even imagine.
Yeah.
Every day I wake up and it's a new adventure, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's possible. That's possible for everybody.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to share in the book.
Yeah. And, you're definitely in the older parts of your life. And despite that age, you seem really happy, which is good.
Come on.
I thought I didn't know. I wanted to say it lightly. But
in my life.
No, but you have, I mean, immediately as soon as you came on, like you have this like playful, like fun, like lighthearted spirit that I feel like a lot of older people, once they get older, that energy like draws. I'm just being honest. You don't like. I hope to seem as joyful as you when I'm your age. Like honestly, like seriously.
No, you know what? Because I never get rid of the kid in me.
Yeah.
And in all seriousness, I put a couple of chapters in the book about this because I think it's part of that learning process that
sure.
I'm just curious, right?
Yes.
I'm curious about everything. I'm curious about you. I want to learn from you.
Yeah.
But every day I can engage that curiosity.
Yes.
And what it does is it makes me open to new opportunities as they come up.
Yes.
Because most of us get all comfortable with what we are and who we are. And we're like, oh, I could never do that because, that's outside of my comfort zone. But what I discovered is where you learn is when you get outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the learning zone. And so if someone comes up to me and says, hey, we want to put you on a rocket and send you to, into space, go spend a week on the space station, I would not hesitate for a second to say yes, because of the experience that would present to me, the learning opportunity, and the way that would change my life going forward. But how many
Yeah.
people would say yes to that? How many people would say,
Yeah. Yeah.
"Weird, maybe not"?
Yeah. I know Elon is trying to make that like a goal for everyone, and I think that would be a super dope goal. I don't know if I would want to be one of the first people to go. Maybe like a couple 10,000 people will go, and then I'll be going. I don't know if I'm gonna, but I'm definitely. I think that would be a great opportunity, and I love what you said about curiosity, Jim, because that's literally why I have this podcast. It gives me a platform to meet people I would have never have met, and
Yeah.
people like you, and I think we need more curiosity. So, how has curiosity served you in your life?
It's just it presents a constant desire to learn, because
Mm,
as I explore, you mentioned earlier before we got on the podcast, you and I were chatting about technology.
yes.
I embrace technology, and you said, "Well, old guys like you, most don't." And I kind of recoiled a little. I didn't call you out on it,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's true. But
Yeah,
it's true.
yeah,
Most older people, they resist technology. I look at it as, oh my God, what a great opportunity, man!
yeah,
This stuff I can do here now with the power of technology, I never dreamed I could do.
yeah. Trust me,
It,
I'm with you. I literally try to digitalize everything I do. Like, I work from home. I do this podcast from home, and although I would like to do this podcast in person, having to do it on home makes it a lot more feasible. I'm in
yeah,
Atlanta. I don't know where you are, but I've had people from all over the world. They're not going to travel and fly to me to do a podcast, and that's okay. And
right.
I'm a real estate investor. I try to digitalize my payments. I try to digitalize everything because I just think it makes life so much easier. But I don't know. I know when you talk to older people, they're gonna be, kids today, they don't want to do anything. It's so lazy, or like it's so difficult.
Well,
But I
yeah,
think that speaks to what you're saying about people not wanting to change. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
no, that's true. I mean, for example, everybody's wanting to take devices away from kids. Well, they're scrolling. All they're doing is looking at the internet. I got 25,000 followers, most of them kids.
Yeah.
It's Jay Key's author. On the internet, on Instagram and TikTok, I got 25,000 on TikTok and Instagram each. And these are mostly young people. And you go,
Hmm.
okay, why is somebody that's like 22 years old going to follow me? Right?
Yeah.
What I'm doing is I'm teaching. I'm talking about ethics. I'm
Yes.
talking about overcoming fear. I'm talking about,
Yes.
being able to run a company, a big corporation worldwide, and opportunity.
Yes.
And they're learning. So I'm out there teaching, and young people are using technology to learn from me in a way that I wish I had that chance
Yeah.
as a kid. And so
Yeah.
while the parent may be going, oh my God, look at my kid, they're sitting there scrolling on the internet, they might be learning more because of what they're digging into. Now, it's a different kind of learning
Hmm.
than maybe they had when they had to sit in class and memorize a table of, numbers or something. It's a
Yeah.
different kind of learning, but it's still learning.
Yes, yes, yes. And the access to people that we have as a result of technology is incredible. Whether you're doing a podcast, or going on YouTube, you can have mentors, digital mentors who are literally teaching you whatever you want. Maybe it's entrepreneurship, leadership, the art of speaking, whatever skill you desire. You can just go on YouTube, hey, and just get access to incredible people. And I feel like it's something we take for granted. I mean, I know I'm a millennial, so I grew up somewhat without it, but I just feel like it's such an incredible gift that we have, that like it's pretty modern in our world, but we have it good. Like we really do. I at least I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you another angle that people don't, they kind of take for granted, is that we are, we tend to, where we live, surround ourselves with people that are just like us.
Yes.
Because our neighborhood kind of looks like us, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up, everybody was Irish or Italian, and the Italians
Yup.
hated the Irish hated the Italians,
Yup.
And then I got out and I realized, damn, there's a world out here that there's people that are really different from me.
Yeah.
I can learn a lot from them. So I call it, in my book, I call it cultural literacy. Because what I've discovered is that the more I can learn about people that are different from me, the more easily I can navigate this world. And I can travel today. In the last month, I was in Toronto, Montreal, London, Monaco, Florence, and then back to New York.
Wow.
And then this month I head to Australia, Japan, Nigeria, and then
you're in Nigeria? What were you doing in Nigeria? I'm Nigerian. What the heck?
I invited to speak at an entrepreneurs conference.
You went to Nigeria? Wow.
But here's why I
that's so cool. Yeah, sorry.
why I can do that. I have developed what I have coined this concept, cultural literacy.
Yeah.
And I do it by interacting with people from all over the world. I don't even have to leave my house. I can do it right here.
Yes.
Online. I can have friends from all over the world and understand their culture.
Yeah.
And then when I do go to Nigeria, no big deal.
Yeah.
I'm with my buddies.
It's an incredible thing. And there's so much power to it. Even from the aspect of digital marketing, I back in the days, if you were trying to do business, you might have to go and knock on people's doors physically to pitch whatever you want to do. Like, what I'm saying? Now you can literally send emails, and with the help of AI, you can do it in like 1,000. You can send so many outreach messages and do it quickly, efficiently, with no effort. And while back in the day, you might have to spend hours or days trying to get to 100 people. So there's so many benefits, man.
But here's another one of those things people are afraid of. You get old people like me.
No, I'm sorry.
I got to do it.
I know. Okay, no, it's fair. It's fair.
But here's what they do. They go, "Oh my God, AI."
Yes.
It's terrifying. It's going to kill us all. It's going to take away all our jobs. No one will have a job anymore, right? And go back to when the internet came out, right?
Yes.
Everybody said, "Oh my God, the internet, it's going to destroy small business."
Yeah.
And what really happened? The internet created small business.
Yes.
Small businesses exploded. We didn't have things like Uber.
Yes.
It was made possible because of the internet. No one dreamed about Uber. We had taxi cabs, right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden people can be like making money on their own in their own car. We have Airbnb. Who would have dreamed that you go hang out in somebody's house, a total stranger, right, and pay them for it?
Yeah.
So, what the net of this is that AI is going to do the same thing. It's going to create opportunities that no one can today sit here and envision. And if you can, you should be monetizing it, because you'll be the next Facebook or the next Uber or the next, DoorDash or something like that.
Well, have you, I'm sure you're familiar with Chat GPT and Grok and all of them. Literally, I can't, what we have today with Chat GPT and Grok and the ability to just congregate information and give it to you. It is incredible. I kid you not. If someone didn't have this technology 10, 15 years ago, and then we were introduced to it in the 2000s, this is easily worth 20,000, 25,000. I don't know how much, but it's such an invaluable tool. You literally have a virtual personal assistant who answers any question you have within 2 to 3 seconds. What? You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. You know what I'm saying? But back in the day, if you had some information, you had to go to the library, find the book, make sure you're finding the right book, then read the whole book, maybe to find something that you don't know. It's crazy how much information we have. No,
it's true. And honestly, I instead of fearing the new technology, I think AI is going to make humans smarter. If you think about machine learning is it accelerates the way another machine will learn. So it's like machine to machine, taking away all the rules and learning at an exponentially faster and faster rate. But if we harness the power of AI to teach humans, then I think human learning can accelerate at an exponential rate. beyond what we know today, because all we know today is what humans were able to learn from other humans.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're limited by what your teacher knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you then teach other people maybe. But with machine learning, the machine can keep delivering you content and change that delivery mechanism based on the way you're learning that content.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a physicist, but I could get online and with an AI tutor, I could become the next Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I mean, it's crazy, man.
And trust me, I would never be able to do that in a normal classroom.
Yeah.
But with AI, I know I could.
Yeah. And the acceleration of which AI allows you to learn is incredible. And I'm definitely excited to see where it takes us. You can be really creative with it too. I don't know if you how much you've explored with it, but like you said, you can ask a question and then ask it to be like your favorite. You can ask it, oh, can you answer this as a doctor, or can you answer this as a rheumatologist or a pharmacist or an AI online tutor or Jim Key? What would Jim say to me? And it would literally answer the question in the style of whoever that person is, and it's crazy. It's like, what
you want to hear a cool application? I was just at Columbia Business School. I sit on the board there.
Yeah.
They at our last board meeting, they brought in a couple of professors to show us what they're doing with AI.
Yeah.
And they demonstrated a case study, and it was a little harsh for me because it was a Netflix case study. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh no. Yeah, because I used to.
No, yeah, I know.
And so I'm like, okay, well, let me ask it a question. And what the case study would do, it would lay out a business problem that Netflix case. In this case, it was, should Netflix continue to develop original content, or should they stay focused on distributing other people's content? So now in business school, you get case studies like this that force you as a potential leader to assess the two sides of an argument. Now, what this AI tool can do is you will present your argument to the computer and say, here's why I think Netflix should develop original content. And the AI tutor will take the opposite side of that argument and debate with you and force you to bring facts to the table, and they will bring facts to the table to support the other side. I mean, it's just fascinating. And then if you take the other side of it and say, no, I think Netflix should only do other people's content, the AI tutor will then debate you and say, but here's the merits of them developing original content.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating.
It's fascinating. And it's funny because you were the former CEO of Blockbuster, and then Blockbuster, I feel like the collapse of it is known for, I guess when I hear critiques of it, it's always like they just failed to use digital technology. And now and that's what Netflix did. Is that where you learned your lesson about how powerful, like what did that teach you? Like, could you talk about that? Like, just like the collapse of Blockbuster and what happened there?
Yeah. We just spent the last 20 minutes talking about technology. Do I look like the kind of guy that would say, oh, I don't want to change?
Yeah, no.
I got to Blockbuster to make them digital, to help them bring.
Gotcha.
They were doing DVDs by mail. They were competing with Netflix already when I arrived.
Yeah.
Netflix had already offered to sell themselves to Blockbuster. That wasn't me.
Okay.
Yeah, it was not me.
Yeah.
But by the time I got there, Netflix and Blockbuster were beating each other up over DVDs by mail.
Yeah.
Over a subscription model with DVDs by mail. I bought a streaming video company from the studios to, instead of doing DVDs by mail, to go straight to streaming.
Wow.
Now, no one knows that. People have a very, very short memory.
Yeah, no one knows, of course. Yeah.
Well, but here's the trouble. People work off of perceptions.
Of course.
The perception, and you're guilty, dude.
I know.
Netflix beat you because you didn't keep up with technology.
Yeah.
That's a false perception, because the reality is Blockbuster did have good technology, if not better technology. We had releases. 3,000 titles already digitized, ready to, as soon as streaming was available. But this is what everybody forgets. There was no streaming available. We didn't have Wi-Fi connectivity. It was heavy. No smart TVs. The iPhone came out in 2007, and that was the first introduction of apps. Nobody was going to watch a movie on a little screen like that.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't until 2009, 2010 that streaming became a thing. But what happened in between is the financial market collapsed. Remember General Motors having to get bailout by the government?
Yeah.
Lehman Brothers collapsed. The banks had to get help from the U.S. government. Blockbuster was one of those challenged companies. We had $1 billion of debt.
Oh.
That's what happened to Blockbuster.
Oh, that's so fascinating. So that's basically there was, because it was too early. There was never an opportunity to capitalize on the streaming.
Correct.
Gotcha. Perception is everything. I'm just on Instagram seeing these stupid memes like, oh, whatever. I don't actually know what it is. That's why I'm glad to actually have you here to explain that.
Yeah. In fact, let me show you something. On the cover of my book, I put this on purpose. This world is on here to represent the difference between perceptions that drive everybody, make people angry, make you, react, and perspective. This to me is perspective. This comes from, I've been fortunate to have several friends that are astronauts, and when they leave the Earth, they look back at the Earth with perspective, and they realize that when they land and they get back to Earth, that they get caught up in perceptions that make people angry and make people go to war, frankly, and make people see their differences rather than their similarities. Perspective is when you step back from it, you say, you know what, we're all humans. We have more in common than we do differences.
Yes.
We had an alien attack, man, we'd all come together in a nanosecond, right?
Yes.
Be like, yeah, we're humans.
Perception and perspective. Oh man, I love that. Yeah, I'm all about perspective. I love talking to people, whether they're rappers, entrepreneurs, CEOs, and just gaining different perspective on what drives them, what makes them want to be a better man or a woman, or what do they feel called to do, and I think that's very important, perception and perspective. And I'm curious, as you've gotten older, how has your perspective on purpose changed? Because I'm only 29, but I feel like even me, like every couple of years, like I feel like my goals and what drives me change. For you, how has that changed as you've gotten older?
Yeah, like everybody else, I'm normal. So when I was working in a normal job, I thought it was all about money. I got to make money. I've got to have a big house. I got to have a fancy car. I mean, all that. I was caught up in all that stuff. And then, once you step back with a different, like I said, perspective, you say, you know what, it was never about the money. I mean, I know a lot of really wealthy people that are pretty miserably unhappy. It was really about the freedom from the beginning. And, a classic example, I when I was a kid, we didn't have any money, but I didn't know we were poor.
Yeah.
What we had a bunch of junk cars in my yard. My dad used to, like strip them down and take the scrap metal in to make a little extra money on weekends. So we had one very pretty. The neighbors probably weren't really happy, but we had, several junk cars. Well, my buddies who were from the wealthy side of town, they liked to come and play in my yard instead of in their fancy game rooms. Now they had all the latest and greatest cool games.
Yeah.
But it was a heck of a lot more fun to sit in my yard in a junk car and use our imaginations and pretend we were driving across country on some grand adventure, right? And looking back on that, I didn't realize it then. Looking back on that, what I had that they didn't have is I had more freedom. They had rules. They had strict rules. You got to be in by 5 p.m. I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
Put yourself out there, right?
Yeah.
And that freedom really is I think what it's all about. It's that ability to get out of those bonds that restrict us, most of them being in our head.
Yes.
They're self-imposed rules.
Yes.
That keep us from enjoying our full life, our full potential.
Yes. We call it limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Yes. I completely agree with you. There's it's your story reminds me of my personal experience of when I traveled to Nigeria, and the perspective that I got from traveling to Nigeria blew my mind, because I grew up in America for most of my life. And I will immediately say, like, it didn't have as much, and it was a lot more poverty stricken. But the biggest thing that I noticed was just how much happier the people there were.
Yeah.
It blew my mind because
Yeah.
we were in villages, and I was talking to my cousin, and I'm like, yo man, like there's literally like nothing out here, bro. It's just like like a couple of like houses and like and barren land. And I'll be like, yo, like what do you guys do here all day? And he's like, dude, we just laugh and make jokes. And he's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's it. And I was
They
like,
live-
oh, okay,
they
yeah,
live-
yeah.
No,
And I'm like, wow,
it's true. I had the same experience. I went to on a mission with the American Red Cross. I sat on the board for a while with American Red Cross. We were on this mission in Vietnam, and we were bringing like malaria, medicine and mosquito nets and stuff like that in these little villages in the middle of Cambodia and Vietnam. And I mean, these people had never seen anybody that looks like me before. We walk into these villages. We're like, because we were way out in the countryside, and I remember distinctly being on the trip with some people that were fairly wealthy, and they were kind of miserable because it was bumpy roads, dirty, mosquitoes, hot, and they were like grumbling. And then we walked into this village, and I remember one of the people turning to me and saying, "Oh, isn't this pitiful? Look at the way they're living," because they had dirt floors.
Yeah.
But I was struck by the joy that these people they
Yes.
rushed out to greet us. And we were sitting there going, man, mosquito,
Yes.
dirty. And they were like, hey, come into our village. Come on in. And they were happy and they were joyful and they were playing.
Yes.
They didn't know they were poor.
Yeah. Well, it speaks to your powerful point on perspective. Like, when we think about perspective, I think their perspective is they don't know any better. They don't know what else it's like to have all those conveniences and access to wealth. So that's just their baseline.
Yeah.
And then it really makes you, at least me, reflect on like why can't I be as happy as them? Like, or is it really necessary to have all that?
You can be. You know how?
How?
I got a secret for you.
Okay. The secret of happiness.
Yeah. I learned it from the Dalai Lama.
Oh, okay.
I had the privilege of listening to the Dalai Lama meeting him one time at the Aspen Institute out in Aspen. He was speaking, but it wasn't the Dalai Lama that impressed me. It was interesting because, I mean, he impressed me, of course, and he has an incredible sense of joy in his presence that you feel.
Yeah.
But I met his assistant, and his assistant was a Frenchman, which I thought was kind of odd. He wasn't. I don't think he was a Buddhist monk at the time. He was just like dressed in normal clothes, but he was the assistant to the Dalai Lama. And I said, "Okay, dude, so why is this guy so happy?" And I felt like I could say that, right? Being dressed in sandals and looked like a monk, I probably would.
Yeah, this is.
I was like, "Come on, give me the secret."
Come on, yeah. Like, let's cut the BS. Yeah.
Every day, come on.
Yeah.
Like, he's putting something in his tea or what?
Yeah.
And he goes, no. He said, I've been with him now for years. Here's what he does. He gets up every day at 3 a.m. and he meditates until about 8 a.m.
What?
4 or 5 hours. And he meditates every day on what he's grateful for, on gratitude.
Wow.
And that gratitude brings him joy because he realizes, man, I'm just lucky to be alive.
Yes.
For every breath I take, and what a beautiful life
Yes.
I have and world this is.
Yes.
So he thinks about that, and he comes out. He said he comes out of that session, and he's just got this like overwhelming aura of happiness and joy. So I tell you that story because the other day I was like scrolling the internet, like we all, I'm flipping through TikTok, and I was like, happiest man in the world. Now I met him, dilemma. Wait, it's the French guy. Seriously, true story. He's out there on the internet now because somebody put him in a lab, wired him up, and tested his brain's response to stimulus. And he tested out, and this is not the Dalai Lama. This is the French guy who now has become a Buddhist monk. And he registered off the charts as the happiest human being these scientists
Wow.
had ever measured. So
Wow.
he learned from the Dalai Lama how to embrace that idea of gratitude being the secret to happiness. And he
Hmm.
practices it, and it works. And he's now measurably one of the happiest humans walking the planet.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
That is awesome, man. They say gratitude is the best attitude.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating, man. It makes me, because I've had a lot of podcasters on this, and they talk about the power of gratitude. But your story puts into perspective. You can never have too much gratitude. Like the fact that he did that for 5 hours. You know what I'm saying? Like that's wow. Like,
That's a little
because
more.
to me that would sound like too much. Like, but that's crazy. Like,
Yeah. You kill yourself on gratitude.
yeah, yeah. No, because I practice gratitude a lot too, and the way I practice gratitude is I'm a God fearing man, and I wake up every morning, and the first thing I do is I pray to God, and I thank Him for everything I have. I thank Him for all that He will do for me and everything He has done for me, and I do that every day. And
Yeah.
then I also journal, and I write in my journal how thankful I am for all the things I have. I'm thankful for my health. I'm thankful to be alive. I'm thankful for this podcast. I'm thankful I can speak to Jim Keys. Like I don't know why a random 29-year-old could speak to a former CEO of 7, but hey, I'm thankful. Like that's what I'm. And so I love gratitude. I love that you mentioned that.
So you know what? You sound exactly like me because that's exactly what I do.
Oh, oh,
Yeah,
cool.
I journal. My journal is right in the drawer in this desk right here. It's been
Wow.
me. I've been doing it since I was in college, and I talk about what I'm grateful for, and
Wow.
I do the same thing. But so I tell you, I mean, this is a great case study, and I mean, somebody looking at this video would say, "What do these two guys have in common?" Right? We have a lot in common,
Yeah, yeah.
and I hope what people get out of this podcast is they see that you and I also have a sense of joy
Yes.
that probably comes. I don't think I need to meditate for
Y-
5 hours,
Yes.
and nor do you. But we
Mm-mm.
still channel that appreciation for life when we wake up.
Yes.
It gives us a tone that I call it my brand. Like we all know consumer product brands, right?
Yes.
You like Coke, or you like Pepsi.
Yeah.
Well, that brand, what's inside really counts.
Yes.
And what's inside you, what's inside me, that really counts. And that's what people feel when they interact with us. When they interact with you, they're going to feel that gratitude coming out.
Yes, yes, yes. So one of my favorite words is when people just say thank you. Like I love when people say thank you. In Japan, I think they say arigito. That's like an anime way of saying thank you. And I know that's random, but I love when people say
Oh,
thank you because for
it's
me it
arigato
just
gozaimasu.
what the heck? That's so that's so random. But yeah. So we're in sync. But I just love gratitude because people who are grateful, they're just easy to be around. You don't feel the pressure of like they're trying to get something out of you. They're already content, so it kind of gives them room to receive more and not have to take or like feel like you're like being like a venom for someone.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's very
yeah.
true.
Yeah. So if gratitude is so important towards our own overall well-being, how do people foster a sense of that without having to meditate for 5 hours? Yeah.
Well, I like your method. I like waking up in the morning and going, "Hey, man, I'm alive.
Yes.
This is cool," and just being, saying a little prayer of thanks. And I turn this into I turn it into a non-denominational or a non-religious thing by talking about Yoda and Star
Hmm.
Wars, because
Hmm.
they talked a lot in Star Wars about the Force, right? It was a
Hmm.
part of Star Wars. And the
Yeah.
Force is that thing. The way I describe it is our knowledge. Like Luke had to learn to be a Jedi,
Hmm.
and that was knowledge. He had to learn how to use a lightsaber and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and how to fly one of those crazy,
Shifts.
ships that he flew
Yeah.
and all that stuff. He had to learn, but he also had the Force,
Hmm.
and the Force is that sort of ability to deal with what you can't see or what you can't know. because there's a lot out there that we don't see, and there's a lot out there that we don't know.
Yes.
And as humans, that tends to derail us sometimes.
Yes.
So religion can fill that gap.
Yeah.
What I like to explain is it doesn't have to be even in a religious sense,
Sure.
but let the force be with you. Let you have a belief. Call it the universe. Call it
Yeah.
yourself. Call it a higher authority. Call it your God. But each of us, if we can channel into that power,
Yes.
it's in each of us.
Yeah.
That faith.
Yeah.
It
Well,
works.
when you speak about that and you share the yoga example, I think about in my religion, in Christianity, they say we walk by faith, not by sight. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And I think faith is such a key integral for living life, because I feel like anything you do requires faith. Getting married requires faith.
Yeah.
Being a leader for of a company like yours requires faith. Doing this podcast requires faith that these guys shows up and he's not an asshole and we actually have a good time. Like, a lot of things require faith,
That
and
was
I
a
think
big
it's
leap
important
right
what you
there.
said. you know No, I mean, look, 95% of my podcasts go pretty well, but you're just 98, like, but you never know, you might meet someone and you're just like, I don't
I
know,
know.
this sucks,
I
like,
know. I
but
know.
this doesn't suck, I'm enjoying it.
So let me let me give you a quote that I just found not too long ago, because I
Sure.
talk about this. I talk about this balance between knowledge and faith. And I found a quote from Pope John Paul.
Mm.
So he said, and now I would have thought, and I'm Christian as well, I'm Catholic, and I would have thought that a pope would err on the side of faith is more important than knowledge, even.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think,
Yeah,
right?
of course, same. Yeah, I definitely would think that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a full time job, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely would think that. Yeah.
But he wrote a paper called Fides e Raison, and
Yeah.
butchering the Latin, but basically it was faith and reason. And he
Hmm.
said that as a human, we have to have a balance, because too much faith, you become superstitious
Yes.
without reason.
Yes.
Too much
Yes.
reason, no faith,
Yes.
become a nihilist.
Yes.
Nihilist. I don't even know how to say it.
Yes.
And he said that the combination, it's the combination
Yes.
of faith and reason. They're like two wings.
Yes.
If one wing is stronger than the other, you're going to fly around circles. But he said faith and reason are like two wings that elevate the human spirit to seek truth.
Yes. Yes.
Love that.
Yes.
Love
Man,
that.
you are speaking to my soul, man. So, every morning, as on the weekdays, I wake up and I read the Bible, and I recently read through James, and what you're saying reminds me of the Bible verse. I think it's James chapter 4, verse 8. Faith without works is dead.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care if you have all the faith in the world. If you're not combining it with what you're actually doing, it means nothing. And not only if you're not doing anything, it's actually displaying a lack of faith, because it takes a lot more faith to do something than just say, oh, I'm gonna, talking about it doesn't really display faith.
No,
Talk
that's
is cheap,
exactly right.
but actually doing something, hey, I'm gonna wake up every day and I'm gonna go do my podcast regardless if no one watches me, once a week, because I have faith that I'm gonna do a great job and I'm gonna attract great people. That's real faith. Not saying, oh, I'm talking about it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, that's right.
yeah.
You want to hear a great story? So,
Yeah.
for those who are not Christian listening to this, they may say, "Oh, he's a couple of Christian guys sitting there talking
Yeah.
about, their God and all this kind of stuff." But I was over in Kuwait recently, and I was
Yeah.
talking about the same stuff, faith and reason, right? And I quoted, or I made the example. I said, "Look, the Bible's 365 times." So here I am in a room, entirely Muslim audience, I'm the only
Yeah.
Christian. And I said, the Bible 365 times says, do not be afraid.
Yeah.
And yet, my fellow Christians are some of the most fearful people on the planet. We're running going, they're going to take Christmas away just because we don't say Merry Christmas to somebody. If we're in a room full of Jewish people and Muslim people, we don't say Merry Christmas. Oh, no, you're going to take Christmas away. It's like,
Yeah.
So, so I sort of poked fun at our own faith and saying, in spite of our fears, the Bible says 365 times, do not be afraid. Have faith. And a gentleman stood up. He said, can can I make a comment? And it was a guy named Sheikh Mubarak from Kuwait. And he said, I'd like to compare that to the Quran, which has 170 times, do not be afraid.
Yeah.
And he read me a passage basically
Wow.
that in the Quran, he read a passage basically that said, Allah can't help you if you can't help yourself. You've got to be able to overcome your own fears in it. And it's not just blind faith. You have to take care of yourself. You have to be proactive.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful moment where, Christianity and Islam have this basic common
Yes.
platform, and yet we as humans, because of fear, sit around going, "Oh no, boy, we're different."
And divide. And yeah, would you, I love the story you share, because one of the things, I've grew up in America and I'm mostly Christian, and that's what my experience has been like. But when I've studied other religions, it seems like we have a lot more in common than it not. Like 95%, to me it all sounds like common. And I don't know why. Like, for example, if we're both Christians and we talk to an Islam guy, I feel like America will be like, oh, we're different religions. But for me, I'm like, oh, great, you have faith too. Like, you have faith too in a higher power. I don't know why that's not our natural reaction. It's more like, oh, I don't understand your culture, blah, blah, blah. I look at you, I'm like, oh, great, man, you have faith in a higher power. That's cool, man. Like, let's talk about what art. Like, I don't know why that's not the reaction, Like,
exactly right. You're exactly right. And at the root of it is thousands of years of misunderstanding,
yes,
fear of each other, and then that fear leads to, and then when I said, I quoted Yoda, fear, he says, fear leads to the dark side. And why? It's because ignorance leads to fear, fear leads to anger, anger leads to violence, or hatred. And if you look back at the history of humanity, virtually every war was started with, someone was afraid of somebody else, or, wanted to conquer someone else. There was anger and violence, and it mostly came from ignorance of our differences. They're different from us, so we better conquer them before they conquer us, right?
Yes.
And we're still doing that today. Thousands of years later, humans haven't evolved past this natural fear that we have. But it's possible. It's possible.
I think this conversation is proof that it's possible.
It's absolutely possible.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, because when I look at, Muslim, Hindu, Christianity, like they all value peace, faith, joy, love. Like and it's not even like, for all these religions, it's like a small section of what that is. That's like literally like the central theme of all these religions. So I don't know why it's so hard for us to connect. It still boggles my mind. I don't know why we don't have that perspective of like, dude, like we have similar beliefs. I don't know why we always focus on like the little quarrels, that don't matter. Like,
well, I think what happens is the 0.1% or 1% or maybe 10% of that given group that gets caught up in fear to the point that their mindset is one of anger and violence.
Yes. Yeah.
The 90%, look at them and say, oh, well, we have to be afraid of them now.
Yeah.
Because they're motivated by anger, and they have a perception that this other group, whatever it is, cannot be trusted. It's us or them, and it's so silly. We're all humans at the end of the day.
And I think it's like what you said. It's a lack of ignorance, and then it goes back to your point between perception and perspective. I think social media creates a perception of a lot of these places that just aren't true. I feel like a lot of the time social media portray a Muslim country as terrorist or violent, but then I've heard stories of where people actually go there and it's like, dude, this is nothing like what I actually thought it was. Like, and I've heard that way too many times. And you're well traveled, so I don't know, how has your perception of America or what the the country portrays the place be actually compared to actual reality of your experience, you know?
Well, I run into that all the time. I find myself in a position of having to defend America so many times. Perception of America is what other people
Yeah.
see on television. I think I live,
Yeah.
so it's like, oh, everybody's like Dallas. They're all
Yeah.
oil people, greedy, and
Yeah.
messing around and shooting each other all the time. It's like, no,
Yeah.
that's your perception. Dallas is very different. America is very different than what a lot of people think. They think we're sort of gun happy, bomb happy, want to dominate other people. And meanwhile, Americans think, all we're trying to do is make this world a better place.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a huge difference between perception and perspective if people would take the time to truly understand each other.
Yeah, one of the things I like about you that I honestly would like to incorporate more in my life is like you're incredibly well traveled. Throughout this conversation, I'm hearing you talk about you've been to Nigeria, you've been to Kuwait, you got to meet the Dalai Lama. Like you seem to have lived a very interesting life and filled with stories from traveling. Where was your favorite place that you traveled to, and do you have advice for the youth on traveling and what that experience brings for people?
Yeah, I don't have a favorite place. I love every place I go.
Wow.
I just, you know, if people say what's your favorite, I say, well, it depends. If I want, really good food, I like France or Vietnam.
Okay.
But if I want beaches, I like Thailand or maybe someplace in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
I want culture. I like to go to London. So it's just different. Every place has different things to offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, but the most important thing, my I think my dad really was responsible. And not like he traveled for fun. As I said, he barely got
Yeah.
past sixth grade, but he was in World War II and he spent time in Burma.
Okay.
And while a lot of GIs came back from the war and they had a kind of a negative perception of the locals, he was
Mhm.
fascinated by the Burmese culture and the people and their kindness and their foods. So he would tell stories about how those cultures really opened his eyes. And then in the US, he was fascinated by getting exposure to other cultures that was very hard for a factory worker in central Massachusetts at the time. But he would share that interest.
Hmm.
And I remember he had some people, Polynesian people, come to the house one time, and I was like, wow, they look different from us.
Yeah.
Cool they were. I mean, because they taught us so much stuff, and it's that I think that really helped me as even as a child realize people are really fascinating from all over the world. They're more interesting,
Yeah.
more different they are from us, the more interesting they are.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely that's definitely something I feel like I need to do more. I'm really well traveled domestically, but internationally, I feel like that's where a lot of the perspective change happens. And yeah, I mean, I have a virtual assistant from the Philippines, and we never met, but even her, like the way we interact is. I always love how grateful she is, and I'm also very appreciative of how powerful the American dollar is. Honestly, I only pay her like maybe $50 to $60 a week, and she's super grateful for that. She's like so thankful, like, and I appreciate that gratitude, and even just how much different like the American dollar is compared to it's just so interesting to me, just different perspectives. Like if you give someone $50 to $60 a week as a job here, people are like, what the hell is this? Unless they're maybe like 12 years old or something, but they take it for granted, you
No,
know?
it's very
Yeah,
true. Very
yeah.
true.
Yeah, yeah. So, anyways, I know you've done a lot, Jim. You were the CEO of your company, and you also traveled a lot, and you recently authored a great book. What would you say is like the ultimate goal you have as a as your as as a CEO and as a human being? Like,
that's a pretty broad question. What do you think?
Yeah.
How do you give me one better? Give me something worse.
Yeah, I guess that is very broad. I guess like I guess what's driving you now, because you have so much life and vitality. Like, I guess it's what keeps you excited. Like, what do you wake up every day looking forward to do?
So I know this. I know it sounds crazy, but I think I have, because of the experience I've had, a unique perspective on life and on opportunity. And so,
Hmm.
what motivates me now is to do exactly what we're doing, to try to share with
Mm.
others this idea that anything's possible, that we can harness the power of technology, we can harness the power of our differences and come together and
Mm.
keep learning from each other in a way that will truly make the world a better place. So it's
Mm.
my small single person effort to try to change the world and leave it a better place than it was when I came.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I can see that in you. Honestly, like, this conversation, I did not expect. I didn't really expect you to be have so much energy and like and vitality.
Yeah, because I'm so
No,
old.
I knew that was coming. No,
Yeah,
no,
man.
no, yeah,
Let
no more,
me,
more because of the perception of I don't know who you are, and perception is just like, oh, he was the CEO of two incredibly huge American companies, so I'm just expecting you to be a bit more structured in your conversations, and you weren't, and that's okay. I'm not. I think that's just cool, So it's just very interesting,
for my purpose. Just more in line with what your expectations were, young man.
Yeah, a little bit like that. But hey, like, perception, it's just we have it's just a good reminder of all these limiting beliefs we have, and we just gotta get rid of it. So, I guess a good way of you delivering your inspiring messages to the world and to these youths, it keeps you going forward and excited. And I think that youthful energy you seems to spread on you, because I saw on your social media that throughout like the country you're constantly speaking to so many young people. Like, why is that so important for you? I'm just it's just you just feel called to do it.
Trying to spread the word. I believe that the world is in a weird place now. We've kind of been taken over by negativity, by
Yeah.
leaders who are pushing fear and expressing victimhood. And I mean, I don't think we're victims. I think each of us has the power to take responsibility for our own life.
Yes.
And if we all do this collectively, I think the world can be a better place. The subtitle of my book is "The Future is in Your Hands." And I mean, I'm trying to spread the word that counters all this negativity and victimhood and woe is me, and people are taking advantage of us, and all this noise that's out there,
Yeah.
to say,
Yeah.
don't let people do that to you. You're in charge of your own identity, and you're in charge of your own opportunity. So grab onto it and make the most out of life.
Yeah, and I think, Jim, what you're doing is really needed, honestly, because I think more than ever, I think young people in our generation, we lack a lot of purpose.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I'm not just saying that, boo. And I feel like your life is full of purpose, excitement, and vitality, and that contrast is very important because I feel like with social media, the depression rates are higher than ever. The lack of identity of what we're supposed to be doing in this world is because even though there's so much information, like we were talking about earlier, that also leads to a lot of distractions. Like, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? You compare yourself. Comparison is a huge problem, by the way, and it's the opposite of gratitude. You look at this person, he has 1 million followers, and you're like, oh man, like, why is my podcast so small? Like, I only got like 20 views, and I'm just like, what I'm saying? It's like, man, like, I think I have great guests. What am I doing? And that can cause like limiting, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like what you're doing is the opposite.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And if your audience wants more information, the book is available on Amazon. I've got a website out there, jameswkeys.com. They can find more about me and the book and order it, or they can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at jkeys author. Jkeys author.
Author, gotcha. Well, y'all heard it. Jim is incredibly charismatic. He's pretty interesting, and he took the time to speak to me. So feel free to reach out to him if you have any questions. And remember, everybody, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Thank you.
Amen, brother.
Amen.
Right.
Thank you.